Hello, I'm Joshua Finn with J&H Aerospace, although you probably knew that because you have probably been watching the video on building this guy. But there is a chance that you ordered it separately. So what we're doing is, you've already built that, we're going to build this rocket pod. This is a very conventional rocket pod, so this is the Century style locking system from probably about 40 years ago, maybe longer than that. And we have a traditional streamer recovery. So we're going to set that aside, and I'm going to show you how to build one right here. If you are building from directly from the full kit, you will be taking your parts from sheets like this. Otherwise, you will be taking them from sheets that are just custom for the pod. So what we're going to start with is we are going to cut out the core for your rocket pod. And I made this one from particularly hard balsa. Nope, that's not what it is. There's a strip of really hard wood. If you ever hold balsa up to the light, sometimes you can find these dark sections. And they're very hard to control as far as getting wood that doesn't have them. So you get little hard spots like that. Anyway, enough of my yammering. Alright, so this is your tongue. If we can disentangle that. It's going to form the heart of your locking assembly. We're going to build that out before we progress very far along. So we're going to take plywood pieces here, and make sure I do this in the correct order, just like you will have to. Alright, so these plywood pieces are going to fit on either side, and they match the outline perfectly. So what you're going to want to do is you want to glue them flush in there. The purpose of these is that since you've got plywood side plating on the fuselage of your glider, you need it on here to get an exact fit, or at least close to an exact fit. So what we have done is we have CA'd that piece on this side, and now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to put the CA directly on here. And if you put all these parts on in the correct order, everything jigs off of everything else as far as you line up the edges and it all works out. So, there we go. The other cool thing is there are only 2 steps here that are going to require you to do any sanding at all. So we're going to take these little pieces, the smaller ones, the larger ones will come next. And the way these work is they mount back here like so. So you take the apex back here and you line it up. So we'll glue that one on. So it fits like so. Now we'll go ahead I'm going to have to open up another bottle of CA pretty soon because this one is just about empty. Inconvenient to run out right in the middle of a video. Alright, so once I've got glue all over my hands from an earlier build tonight, and things aren't sticking real well. So now we have this little claw assembly. Now that we've got the little claw assembly built, we're going to build the, we're going to install the little side plates on here. These will be the last of our wooden parts here. And so, I don't know if you can tell real well, but basically this is the sharper end and this is the fatter end. Fatter end goes forward. And what we're doing is we're mounting this so that it comes up flush with the top along here. And you notice now the plywood is completely covered up. And if the plywood is completely covered up, you know you've done it correctly. So now you have these two side plates. So you've got a slot that's running all the way up there. So the purpose of that is that it will lock onto your glider. This fits a little tight yet, so you can go in there and you can sand it. You want to run sandpaper on the inside there. Part of the reason I see that it is tight on this one is I've got a little bit of CA in there. But we will address that in a minute. The important thing that comes next is, if you notice, we've got a vertical tail above our glider, and we've got a rocket engine blowing hot gases up here. If we leave this directly in line with that engine, chances are it's going to get burned, and it could burn completely off. So what we do is we mount this pod over on the side. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to put a 45-degree bevel in the mounting surface of this tongue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a razor plane here. Do it with sandpaper as well. Then I want to come in, I want to kind of make that surface a little bit concave. And that provides me with a good gluing surface back here. Now what I typically do is, now that you've got that extra surface, it becomes a little unclear where to mount this thing. So what I do is I have the end of the mounting area on this side about what is that? That's about a ½ inch in. It's not real critical that it be exact. Now before we glue this in place, what I'm going to do is I am going to cut a little V-notch in here, like so. So you see I've got this little V-notch. And I'm going to take my shock cord and tie this around, double it through a little bit here. Want this knot to be fairly secure. And notice I've tied the knot on the outside of this keel. It's not going to really hurt your aerodynamics, but the main thing is that you don't want this to come apart, particularly if you're flying this airplane competitively. NAR competitions dictate that that streamer comes off, you're disqualified. Alright, so now we've got that set up. Come back in here to our approximate spacing. We eyeball that we've got this thing lined up. And now, since I'm out of thick CA, I'm going to glue this to my hands. Now, that's still not real secure, so I'm going to add a little more in there. Now, if you wanted to be absolutely certain, you'd want to go ahead and put a fillet on there. Not a big deal for me right now because I'm not currently on the rocketry contest circuit. If I were, I'd be more obsessed with all that. Take your launch plug, rough its surface up on one side. Put it in place. It does not need to be flush with back, you just want it to be mostly lined up. And there you go. So I've got it mostly on the, basically lined up with the same plane as this tongue. So there are lots of ways that you can secure your nose cone. This is the method I am using. What I'm going to do is run my razor blade in here. And then I'm going to wrap this Kevlar all the way around. I'm going to attempt to. Tack it down with some CA. Hope that the CA does not fill in the slot that I just made. So I'm going to pull it all the way through that slot that I made. And I'm going to pull it back inside a little bit. I'm going to dip CA in there. And I'm going to get a dirty look from my wife because I did not put down wax paper. If you're watching this video, please put wax paper down while you are building. Alright, now that we've got all of this secure, the last construction step here, I'm going to take one end of my streamer, I'm going to twist it around like so, and then I'm going to tie a knot through my shock cord, with my shock cord, in my shock cord, something like that. And then we'll double that over one more time. Now, I like to accordion fold these. Find they give you a little bit better performance this way. And I believe the people that are flying streamer duration contests are still pleating them in this manner. Now, if you're about to launch this model, you'd want to fit about 2 or 3 squares of flame-proof recovery wadding in here. And then after that, slide everything else in. And last nose cone comes in. Have a little bit of slack here, that's okay. If you twist the nose around so that it's above, that ensures there's no chance of your glider tangling in it. Now, we said that we had a little bit of sanding off to do in here. And then this guy fits in place like so. Now, there is one last thing that I recommend you do, and it's this. You've got a blunt surface back here that lines up with your vertical stab, and you can see, dunk, I just put a dent in it. You can mitigate that somewhat by sanding this to a point. Chances of it hitting square on that point are very low, and it'll still bounce off and then just slide off either side. And that's the end of that problem. So there you go. You're done with the construction of your pod. At this point, proceed to our video on launching this aircraft and have fun.